Good morning. I love Grand Rapids for a couple of reasons. One, I want to shout out to my lovely Dutch aunt and uncle. Where are you at? You came to visit me this morning. You're going to get a kick out of this. Basically, this is my beautiful Dutch family, and I married into the Dutch family, so I had a lot to learn. Like, you can't eat Splenda, you have to do sugar. Like, they're really strict about that. So I knew when I was coming to Grand Rapids that I might be running into some relatives, since my husband comes from a huge Dutch family, a beautiful family that God blessed me with. So my name is Shelley, and like he said, I'm the president of Pink Cross Foundation. I have my organization actually rescues women out of sex trafficking. Also, we rescue women out of the porn industry, because that is also sex trafficking, which most people don't know. So today I'll be sharing my story with you. I was a sex trafficking victim. Now I'm a sex trafficking survivor turned champion for Christ. And I hope that my story, thank you. And I hope that my story just totally rocks your world. I ask for grace because there are some graphic parts to it. It is not easy standing in church talking about my story. I'm actually more comfortable ministering in a porn convention. So give me grace. So Father, just whatever you want, Lord, let it come out. When I was a little girl, I loved Jesus so much. I loved Sunday school. I went every time those doors were open, just watching my teacher play her little ukulele and singing all these cute little songs, and I'm eating my Ritz crackers, and she's talking about Moses and the Red Sea and Joshua and the conquest. I'm like, I just loved God when I was little. And he would speak to me clearly. I was so called when I was little. And so the first 8 years of my life, I had this beautiful world inside church and Sunday school. My home life wasn't that great. I always felt very neglected, and that my father was really too busy to really spend time with me or tell me that he loved me. Very hard for him to do. And my mom, in all honesty, she nagged me to death. She also was not equipped to really parent me or the other kids. They provided for us, which I'm grateful for, but at that time, what I really needed was their love and their attention, which I did not receive. But I got it in Sunday school. So what happened was, after 8 years old, my parents moved, and I lost everything. That was my whole world. And that same summer that they moved, I got sexually abused at 9 years old by a teenage boy and his sister. I had my first heterosexual and homosexual experience at 9 years old. And it was horrific. In fact, after it happened, I was shaking. I had spent the night there. I was shaking. I couldn't even sleep. I wanted to run away. And the devil came and spoke to me and says, "You're a bad, dirty little girl." And I felt very dirty and ashamed and weird. And that's at the same time I started sexually acting out, masturbating at 9 years old, not even really understanding why I was doing it, but that I just started doing it. Very common for sexual abuse survivors. And I just became even more peculiar. My mother already thought I was peculiar because I was very animated. I was like, she said, "You're like raising twins. You're so peculiar." She would call me names like that. "You're so lazy. You're so forgetful. You're so weird." Things like that. As a man says, so he is. And I tell parents, hey, you're prophesying over your child when you call him names. And I did become forgetful, and I did become lazy, and I did become very peculiar. I still kind of am, but look, I'm an ex-porn star speaking in church. That's pretty peculiar. So, I'm just going through this whole thing by myself. I had no one to tell. Now I stopped really going to church. I had found another little church that I could go to on the corner. By the way, I took my brother and sister by myself. My parents didn't even go to church. I just wanted to be with other Christians, and I wanted to be with God. But, my parents didn't go to church, and I was dealing with all of this, and more I was becoming more full of anger toward my parents. They weren't paying attention. My parents were too busy, or my mom was yelling at me, or, there was really no love of Christ in my home whatsoever, and yet we called ourselves Christians. So I call it the pseudo-Christian family, where you guys think you're Christians, and then you're not. And the hallmark of Christianity is love, the love of Jesus Christ. Love is patient. Love is kind. It suffers long. It bears all things. Yeah, none of that was happening in my home. I was getting in trouble for everything because I was acting out. I was becoming more and more rebellious. Here I am carrying this sexual abuse shame. At the same time, I have parents who are neglectful and nagging and calling me names. And I just grew up feeling very, very ugly and unwanted. And then high school hit. And then the boys happened. And I started sexually acting out with boys because that told me that they loved me. I believed that sex meant love for me. I was getting approval. All I ever wanted was my own father, my daddy, to tell me that I was his precious little girl. It really would be such a simple act. I don't know why dads have such a hard time with that. But a lot of dads do. It's hard for them to be affectionate. And so that's really all I really wanted as a little girl. My dad was my hero. He was so smart, and he was an inventor, and a lot like me. We're a lot alike, so I just admired him so much. But my hero was too busy for me. So then I really started acting out in high school, not only to get the boys' attention, but I wanted to get my parents' attention, so I became shell-shocked. That was my nickname, Shell-Shock. So I thought I would shock everybody to get their attention. So I started dressing really wild. My mom bought the clothes for me. Some I stole. Wore fishnet stockings, mini skirt, the neon stuff, big crazy hair, trying to be a Madonna wannabe. Madonna had just come out, and I thought, she'll make a nice new mother for me. See, when parents don't take care of their kids, the devil has no problem stepping in and providing new parents for your child. The only God that your child will see when they're growing up is through you. So I thought God was mean and distant like my mom and dad. And so, as I began to rebel and get attention, I started having sex, started doing drugs. I would, take my mom's car and I would go to nightclubs. At 16 years old, I was allowed to go to nightclubs with my boyfriend in my mom's car, where we all smoked pot and ecstasy and started drinking. And I would bring big bottles of Jack Daniels home in the house, just kind of leave them out so my parents would find it to see, Instead, they would shove it under the rug. We didn't know what to do with you. Just shove it under the rug. I'm like, we just put our heads in the sand, Shelley. I'm like, that's not a good enough reason. You knew your daughter was an alcoholic at like 16 years old. You knew I was sick. You knew that our family needed help. But you know what? I think we went to like 1 or 2 counseling sessions. My dad says, I'm too busy. And nobody wanted to be there. And my parents didn't want to be confronted by the counselor. So again, they just stuck their heads in the sand. Then I really started rebelling. Now I'm getting in trouble at high school. I actually super glued my entire high school. I was a hero for like a whole week at school. I'm like, it wasn't me. Yeah, we put like super glue, and I shouldn't tell you how to do it. That's bad. So I just became really wild. I took my dad's truck and ruined the entire engine. I was driving like a reckless driver everywhere. Well, my dad was a mechanic, and he had a race car, so who do you think taught me how to drive like that? Yeah, you better believe it. So I was reckless. Totally. I get a ticket by a cop, I would just take it and throw it in his face and drive off. I don't care. I get all these tickets. I didn't care. Finally, I lost my license. So now I can't drive. I have no license. I'm an alcoholic. I'm carrying all this shame. My parents, I think they hate me. I don't know what happened to Jesus, because when I was little, we were very close, me and Jesus. And he told me, Shelley, someday you're going to preach the gospel. Thousands of people. Wow, 6 years old. I'm called by God. It was really awesome. Now I'm in high school like, yeah, whatever. Where are you now? Well, my dad got sick of my rebellion, and he came to me after I barely graduated high school. Yeah, I had like C's, D's, and F's. Where was my help? Where's my tutor? Where's any kind of, my dad would try and teach me math, but they were just so unavailable. I have 3 girls. When they need help, they get the help, period. No, I did not get that help. So I failed miserably in school. Here I am, this little girl. I was so smart. I was so intelligent. I was writing poetry at 8 years old, beautiful poetry. I wrote my first book at 9 years old and gave it to the the school library and even made my own little book cover. I was just really a talented little girl, acting and creative. My 6-year-old teacher told my mom, she's really gifted. She's got all the kids in the entire classroom doing everything she says, and they're putting on this big play, and they're making this 50-foot mural. It's just amazing. You should put her in a special gifted, school or some kind of class. And my mom goes, she's just so peculiar. I don't know what to do with her. I'm like, so all the time my hopes would get high that someone recognized something special about me. And my parents would just blow the bubble, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not special. I'm just ugly, dirty little girl that nobody wants. Nobody wants me. So when my dad kicked me on the street, that was the final blow. He says, get out. I'm like, get out where? He goes, get out. You're not living here anymore. You're 18. You cause problems all the time. It was always my fault. The whole house, my mom and me fought every single day of my high school years, every day, fighting and screaming and crying. And then my dad would come home and my mom would cry, Dennis, she's just horrible to me. Look what you, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's always my fault. Being manipulated by someone who would manipulate my father through tears, and I'd had enough. I had no respect for either one of them. They had never done anything to earn my respect. So when I was kicked out, that was it. I swore to God I would never, ever speak to these people again for throwing me out on the street with no money, no driver's license, nothing. All I had was a bag with some clothes and my Bible. And I ended up on a curb, homeless, in the San Fernando Valley in California. And that's where, unbeknownst to me, is the porn capital of the world. 85% of adult content is produced in this small little area in California of the world. And I'm sitting there right in the middle of it. And so I just sat in that, I'm in shock. You're in shock when something like that happens. I'm like hitchhiking, trying to find where I'm going to go and who am I going to live with. And I just was crying on this curb, just homeless on Sherman Way. It was hot. In California, it's very hot. So there I'm hot. I have no food. I have nothing. What am I going to do? And I just started going, Jesus, where are you? What happened when I was a little girl? You made all these promises. Where are you? Am I so unforgivable? Am I so utterly unlovable that you don't want me anymore? Then all of a sudden, a man came up, and he saw me weeping. Big, beautiful black man. And he came up to me. He was really muscular, and he says, honey, what is wrong with you? And I just wept and let it all out and told him everything that ever happened to me. And he just started to hold me like I never been touched like that by an older man. He was hugging me like a father. And I was like, oh, that feels so good. Oh, my gosh. He was like an angel. And he just says, I can help you. And I'm thinking, Jesus has come to rescue me. And he says, there's a nice man across the street who thinks you're pretty, and he'd like to make love to you for $35. What? I'm not a prostitute. I would never do that. He goes, well, you'd have a place to live, your own place. You have your food, and you would have all, and I'm like, here I'm sitting on this curb homeless while my parents are sleeping in their nice warm bed. And the devil came to me, and he said, Shelley, your parents don't care. God doesn't care. And I thought, yeah, why should I care? And so I went ahead and I sold myself into a life of prostitution for $35. And that life began a downward spiral. I started getting in very abusive situations. The pimp even locked me in his apartment so that way the tricks could come in there. I mean, I was being raped, literally, sex trafficked right there. And I finally had to physically fight him to get out of his arms. I had that in me. I had anger, and I had that rage, and I'm half Italian. Nobody messes. And I was a very rebellious teenager, so I had to fight my way physically out of there and run. Ended up on another curb, not far, right there on Ventura Boulevard. Here I am again going, I was just living in a middle-class home. Overnight, I went from being like a high schooler to a prostitute, not even knowing how to survive. And so I started just saying, I don't want a pimp. I'll just sell myself. And so I started going to where men worked, and most of them were married men. like in mechanic shops or like business owner shops or jewelry shops. I started just asking them, do you want a sex act for like $50? It was so pathetic. It was so humbling. And they would take me up on it. And so one time this is when it got really bizarre, is one time a man bled all over me, and I thought I had caught AIDS. And I freaked out, ran down the street to another place, and just crying out to God, where are you? What's happening to me? Please, God, help me. And he was silent. Then a madam found me. She goes, you should just come live with me, a really glamorous side of prostitution. You can't work on the streets. You're going to die. You're not that kind of girl. You're something special. So here again, Satan has sent me new parents, a pimp first, and then now I got a new mother. And she started grooming me, teaching me the way of prostitution, how to lie and deceive all men, how to get every last dollar out of their wallets. I was groomed. All of the women in porn are very groomed. So that was my initial training. So when men would come, we'd be pulling 10 to 15 tricks a day, making money. I learned how to lie, hustle. By 19 years old, I was a very effective hustler. I could tell you how much I love you. Oh my gosh, there's no man like you. Yeah. Little actress is what I was. And so after time went on, I decided I wasn't going to continue to do that because I got pregnant. And we were using protection. I want you to know there is no such thing as protection except for abstinence. Condoms don't work, they break, and they leak, period. I know because it's happened to me, and I got pregnant. I had a miscarriage, and then the same mistake happened. Some of the crazy men, they would rip their condoms on purpose. It was a war zone. This is what I had to deal with all the time. I'm like, no kissing, no doing that. No, you have to put down all the rules, and it's just, you begin to hate men and think, how pathetic these men are. They need a prostitute for an hour. What pigs? That's what prostitutes call men, pigs. And so I began even more to hate men. I hated my father. I hated that stupid pimp. And these men, they didn't care about me at all. They just had demands. Men constantly made demands on me, constantly. And they sent me the message that they could never, ever be trusted. Most of them were married. Yeah, sometimes I felt bad about that. But remember, I stopped caring about myself, and I couldn't afford the luxury to feel bad about anything I did. I had to stay strong. I had to survive. I'm just like a Vietnam vet. I was in hell for 8 years, surviving. And it toughens you. It makes you jaded. It makes you numb. And then you start numbing yourself, which is what I did. Alcohol, drugs, we're smoking pot. The madam provided many things for us. And so as that time went on and I got pregnant twice, the first 14 months that I was in prostitution. But the second baby, I didn't have a miscarriage. And I still had one value left from Sunday school. I couldn't kill my baby. I don't know how it was going to work. I just know I couldn't do that. That grace was given to me. And I ended up leaving the madam. This is the sex industry. Vicious cycle from here, moving around all the time. On the average, we move about 5 to 6 times a year. That includes porn stars. Sex worker is a sex worker. It's vicious. Well, the baby kept growing, and now I'm homeless in downtown Los Angeles, going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I finally found a strip club, got a fake ID, stole a fake ID, and I started stripping. And it was pathetic. I would get to the point where I'm 7 months pregnant, I had to put a big, pink, fluffy skirt around me and go, pathetic. And those pathetic men would sit there and put money in my pink. They knew I was out to here. And finally, the owner says, hey, you got to go have your baby. I can't be having you here that big. Okay, so then I left, went to go have my baby, went on welfare, like state financial aid for a few months. As soon as I had that baby and lost the weight, I went right back to the stripping. I did not feel a connection at all with my baby. In fact, it was very hard for me to touch her or hold her because she reminded me of the trick. She's half Asian, and that just reminded me of what happened that night. And so I could never really hug her or kiss her or touch her. I gave her the bottles and stuff, and then We have a lot of Mexican people in California, and they're like the best moms, so I just paid them some money. I said, here, you take care of it. I don't even know how to do that. I just know how to be a stripper. And so I kept stripping, and of course it's a war zone too, hustling all the time, trying to get that money, telling men every lie they want to hear. We know everything you want to hear. You want to hear that, there's no man like you, that you're strong, and you're the best. Men want to feel approved too. And a lot of times, in all honesty, they would confess to me their wives weren't lifting them up, weren't encouraging them. So I actually learned how to become a counselor as a prostitute. I got to the point where half of my clients would just come to me to talk, and then I would tell them, no, honey, you are an amazing man. That's what they really wanted to hear more than anything. Anyways, after that vicious cycle of just going to prostitution, the drugs and alcohol and the craziness, drunk driving, and the cops would pull me over for drunk driving. All I had to do was bend over and show them my butt, and then they escorted me home. I've been pulled over for drunk driving so many times, and I've never been arrested. Yes, the LAPD and a lot of other police departments definitely like prostitutes. I know I dated the LAPD. Well, finally, I got burned out and keep going to prostitution. Then you're like, I don't want to do prostitution anymore. I'm so sick of it. And then go stripping. But stripping, it's horrible, too. The men tell you all night long, your thighs are too fat, your face isn't pretty enough, you should let your hair grow, you need to get boobs, your butt's too big, and you lose weight. Oh, wear red, no purple. I want that gold one. All night long, men telling me their demands on my life, not caring at all that I am a person with feelings, with opinions, with thoughts. No, you are not a person in the sex industry. You aren't it. You are an object. That's it. I could have put a mask over my head, and that would have been fine for them. So I got sick of that lifestyle, too. Men grabbing you, doing inappropriate things, even the owners demanding sex acts for you to even work at the strip club. All sex trafficking. All strip clubs are sex trafficking. All forms of sex work is sex trafficking. Let me define sex trafficking for you. In case you don't know, according to the U.S. federal law, that any sex act, any commercial sex act, or let me put it this way, anyone, woman, child, man, anyone who's been lured in, coerced, forced to do a commercial sex act through fraud, force, or coercing, that is sex trafficking, period. So that would mean everybody. Everybody in the sex industry is being trafficked. Everyone's been lured in. I was lured in by a pimp. I was lured in by a madam, lured in by the porn industry. I was coerced. You better believe it. You need to do this. No, I'll give you this, making me promises. Enticement. Enticement is a form of sex trafficking. We're all enticed. See the money, honey? I'm like, we see the money. We're not there for any other reason except for your wallet. That's it. Nobody in porn enjoys making porn. In fact, we prefer prostitution because at least you can get like a dinner and you only work like maybe 2 hours. Well, in the porn industry, you get to work 8 hours and you get to have bodily fluids all over you and no protection. So you see, what we do is we go into porn, we use our porn star name to make more money as prostitutes. It is all prostitution and it is all sex trafficking. I know because I was there and I have done it all literally. Well, I finally got burned out. Now I'm raising this baby. I can't even take care of her. I go to bed like at 6 a.m. and wake up like 3 p.m. My biological clock was completely off. And this little girl would wake up, my little 3-year-old would wake up. She got out her old stale cereal and poured it in a bowl of Coke. There was no milk in the house. My house was filth. I didn't clean. I didn't even do laundry. I just gave the clothes like to the poor people down the street, and I bought new clothes. That's what my sugar daddies did. I need more clothes now. It was a crazy life. So I just go get my clothes and then keep doing the same thing. I didn't even know how to, I didn't even pump my own gas. I would walk to the gas station and go, can you pump my gas? I was just really, it was all about when men were going to make those demands on me, then they were going to become my slave too. Because after a while, you're tired of being abused and you become the abuser. That's it, And men will do what I say, and I will get that last dollar. But the truth is really I was doing what they wanted. So after a while, being so burned out, by now I hate men. I'm turning now to women to be homosexual. I had that homosexual experience at 9. I actually had a couple throughout my high school years with women. So you just kind of look for women for comfort, because at least they're not, they're not a man. Because remember, in my head, all men are bad and want to hurt you. So I got in a relationship, a homosexual relationship, and it was even worse because this person became obsessed with me. I was being convicted by the Holy Spirit every single day of my life in the sex industry, because see, I knew Jesus when I was little. But what I didn't understand, you want to convict me, but you don't want to help me. Where are you? So I justified it by saying, God, you're not providing for me, you're not helping me, I got to do what I got to do. So this porn star, she comes into the strip club, she sees me dance, and then I go down and she goes, oh my God, you're so hot, like you should be in porn. I'm like, porn? This is in the 90s. Porn? What do you mean porn? She goes, it's like sex in front of the camera, and you can make like $2,000 a movie. I'm like, $2,000 a movie? I don't even barely make that in a week, and I have to go through all this abuse. So I'm like, will I be kept safe? Oh yeah, the porn people are the cleanest people in the world. I'm like, okay. She goes, just get your AIDS test once a month. You'll just be kept clean. Okay. So sure enough, I show up to the set, and of course, I'm so nervous. And trust me, that Holy Spirit thing, working, I know in my heart that this is wrong, but I got to do what I got to do. So that very first scene was so scary for me, and of course, I had my alcohol and my drugs. Nobody really does those movies sober. We're just really good actresses, make it look like we're sober, or we're screaming and crying, and you guys think that we love that, when really we're just high. And so when I went to go do the scene, I'm thinking in my head, I don't even know how to shake these people's hand. Hi, I'm Roxy. I'm about to have intercourse with you. Hi, I'm Roxy, and we'll be having a homosexual experience. So it was totally awkward, bizarre, and frightening, and I did not want to do it. I did not want to do it, and either do the other women in porn. But I knew that I needed the money. This was fast, easy money. I had no education. I had no skills. I had no one or nothing. I had a choice, I can do porn and suffer for only a couple hours, or sit there and work all week long in a strip club, and I was already so burned out. So sure enough, I go ahead and the movie starts, and I'm really awkward and scared, and all of a sudden, this darkness came down on me so thick. And the devil spoke clearly to me and said, Shelley, I'll make you famous and everyone will love you. And he entered me, and I became even more demon-possessed than I already was. And I just ravished those people on the set, and I just changed. I went, Roxy, the porn star. Oh, yeah. And I just started going crazy on the people. And the pornographer's like, oh, do you see this girl? There's no girl like you. You are amazing. Oh, look, you're going to be big. You're going to be the next biggest, hottest porn star. I am? Oh. I'm like, yeah, I am. I was going to prove to the world and my parents and every man that I was awesome, that I was the best. So I was out to prove something. So I would do very hardcore, started getting more hardcore acts because they knew this one's really damaged. She'll do anything. And of course, they entice you with even more money. Or, they say, baby, you're just so pretty, telling you we're sitting on pornographers' laps. I never sat on my dad's lap when I was older. I don't really even remember any affection. So they're holding you going, you're so sweet. The porn industry is one big, filthy, happy family. The pornographers know what these damaged girls need. They need that approval. They know exactly how to entice her and talk her into doing this scene. I'd be like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, come here, honey. You can't. It's going to be really easy. He'll be really gentle. Like 6 guys, he's going to be gentle. That's not gentle. So, of course, I went through it. I was given drugs and alcohol. At any time, you can get drugs and alcohol. In fact, there are 2 doctors, and I know their names, in the valley. That's what they call it, Porn Valley. And those 2 doctors, at any time, the porn star can go to them for a cold, and she can get Prozac, Norcos, Vicodin, Valium, whatever she needs to get through that. So they're in conspiracy with the porn industry to supply these girls the prescription drugs that they need. And I'm not the only one that's saying this. Like on my website, especially in other places on the internet, I've got all these girls confessing all the drugs that they were given, all the drug use. I've worked very hard to help these girls, to raise them up to be a voice against this industry, and they're on my site. There's about 25 of us who've come out publicly now, but there's hundreds of women that are in recovery right now. So be sure to go and see that I'm not the only one that says this. Jenna Jameson, most famous porn queen, her book, I don't recommend you read it, but she does tell a lot of the truth about what really goes on in the industry. So I did applaud her for that. But then now she's a pimp, so she doesn't want to do anymore. She doesn't want to do the porn anymore. Now she wants to pimp all the girls out. She goes, I earned it. That's her attitude. I earned this. I worked really hard to get to the top, and now I'm going to do this. So this is what happens. Most of the porn stars, they get so burned out, and physically they just even can't keep up with that kind of physical violence. So they become the director, or they become the pimp, or some of them catch HIV, and now they can't work at all, so then they put them in the back room doing like the stocking, all the DVDs. It's really sad. Of course, I didn't know any of this when I was in it. I was told I would be kept safe, I would make lots of money, and that would be easy and fun. And that would be famous. And that was really important to me. But after about 30 movies and getting into really hardcore porn, I mean, like even porn where like I became so hard and gross and I became more and more demonized every time I did something grosser that I turned into a man, actually, and I started to abuse the women. I mean, that's what happens. It's a progression, kind of like pornography addiction. You just kind of start out looking at the boy-girl stuff. Then you want to go to the interracial stuff. Maybe you want to go more to watching group sex, and then you're looking at bestiality and maybe now child porn. It is progressive. Anyone viewing porn on a regular basis understands what I'm saying right now, because that you can't get that same high anymore, and so you need another high. And that puts the demand on the women in porn. So the pornographer, what he does is he goes around and he watches any of you who are viewing porn, and he watches your habits online. Okay, look at that's really hot right now. The MILF for like let's do the more amateur. We got to do more of that. Okay, so go to the girl and go, listen, men now want to see you do, things that we never even thought of doing when I was in porn. The porn industry from the time I was in porn to just a few years ago 20 times itself. Because of the internet. It is growing rapidly. Thousands and thousands of American middle-class girls who are innocent, even more innocent than I was, are sitting there, I'm going to be a porn star and famous and rich and blah, blah, blah. And the pornographers are purposely going to your child's social networking sites, telling them, you're so hot, you're so pretty. I am, of course you are. And most of these girls are hungry and starving for love like I was. And most of these girls come from broken homes. And most of them were sexual abuse survivors as children. I know, I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of women. I've read all their books. One thing we all have in common is the reason we're doing porn, the background that we have. I call it the classic porn star background in my book. You need to read my book to really even goes into deeper, and also have all these quotes from girls that were in porn telling the truth, that this is definitely sex trafficking. And every time someone clicks on a porn movie, they are contributing to demands made on women that are destroying them. At least 1 to 2 people in the porn industry die a month. 70% of all the STDs happen in women. See, it just ruins our reproductive system. But these young girls, when you sign up for porn, you don't even understand. You don't understand this. You just believe these people because they're supposed to be like professionals, professional criminals. So after about 30 movies, I woke up one morning with about 104 fever, feeling so sick. And I looked in the mirror, and I had blisters all over my lips and in my throat. Huge red quarter size in my throat. What the blank is that? And then they were everywhere else. So, of course, I go to the clinic, and some Indian doctor goes, oh, you have herpes. I go, herpes? Are you saying that I have genital herpes? Oh, yeah, bad case. I go, isn't that a non-curable disease? He goes, yeah, the rest of your life, you're just going to have to make sure that all the towels, can't touch your daughter's towels, separate the utensils, separate the clothes. I'm like, but I'm totally irresponsible parent in the first place. I don't pay my own bills. I don't even take care of my kid. And you're telling me now the rest of my life I have to live this way? I was in shock. I got burned. So I went back to my apartment and I just said, you know what, God? I can't do this anymore. I can't. And the devil went, phew. And he started laughing at me. You're just a monster. Nobody will want you now. You should just kill yourself, Shelley. And I'm like, yeah, I should. I'm tired. I'm tired of being here. And so I took a bunch of prescription pills and I took my little baby and I said, Mommy loves you, but I have to go now, and I hope the next person that finds you will take care of you. And I kissed her goodbye. And I was completely ready to die, even go to hell. I didn't even care. But unfortunately, or fortunately now, I lived. I woke up in the hospital, had my stomach pumped, and I just looked at God and go, what does it take? I've been trying to kill myself so many times. I've been drunk driving. I've taken prescription pills. I drank my brains out. I've gotten high. Why are you still having me live? What is it you have against me? I didn't understand. Hello? Are you hearing me, God? No answer. So I said, what do I do now? I can't go back to porn. Are you kidding? I was so full of shame already for everything I had done, and now I get to live with a disease the rest of my life because of porn? Yeah, I got screwed. A lot of people in the porn industry go in there believing their lies. I'm telling you right now, STDs are so rampant that right now the state of California is forcing the porn industry to use condoms. And they refuse to obey the law. They refuse to obey health and safety laws. They refuse to obey sex trafficking laws. They think they're above the law because no one's ever tried to speak out against them in 35 years. Really, I was the first one who went and started this group and said, no, I will show up to court. I don't care how I have to put pressure on this industry, whether it's health and safety, labor, sex trafficking. I will press it. And God gave me a vision of this big black beast, and it's stabbed in 7 different places. And God says, you stab it in 7 different places, and it will bleed to death. I don't want any other girl to go through what I did. And let me tell you, they're dying. It's worse now. They just had a syphilis outbreak last month, 100 porn stars. And you know, the porn industry goes, oh, we'll just give everyone a penicillin shot and they'll be fine. That's illegal. So now the health department's involved. They're in big troubles. Every month, there's some kind of disease, HIV outbreak. But of course, you don't see that part. You just see it when we go, I love sex. Oh, yeah, I love it. Yes, they're groomed and they're trained and they are paid and they're forced to do what the pornographer says. And if they don't do it, the pornographer threatens them with things like ruining their reputation. If you don't do this scene, I will send these pornos to your family, and they will know what you did. If you don't do this scene, you will be blacklisted. You will never be able to work for anyone else. I'll make sure of it. If you don't do this scene, I'll go to all your escorts, because remember, those pornographers who are pimps, they get a lot of prostitution deals for the girls because the porn industry is also just one big prostitution factory. Because, you know, all those girls want to date all the Hollywood directors and producers and actors. And so if you don't do this porn, you know, I'll physically hurt you. You will do this porn. So these girls, they have to keep up a huge facade. Like when they show up to the Capitol, they're like, and here we are talking, and I'm telling the truth about the porn industry, and they get up and go, I'm very happy here. Yeah, I love porn. I'm like, you are so stupid. Sit down, please. You're like a little puppet. They're behind her. When we go to porn conventions and reach out to these people, the pimps are right there looking at me like, and they're right by the girl because they know we're going to try and get her. And they're like, you can't. Every porn convention booth has a pimp protecting the girl. Not protecting, watching over his investment. Well, after I left porn, I thought, that's it. I have no place to go. I tried prostitution. I thought one night I'll go into a bar. Maybe I'll get a trick. I don't have to tell them about my little herpes problem. I'll just use a condom. Fortunately, herpes is skin to skin. Condom can't protect any of that. In fact, most diseases can't protect at all. Well, you can't even protect HIV, in all honesty. It's just a big fallacy, the whole condom crap. So I went to this bar, and I'm sitting there, going, yeah, I'm ready to make a deal. Who can make a deal? This guy comes up to me really sweet. He says, hey, you want to play pool? I'm like, no, I'm cash only. You know what I mean? He's like, huh? He goes, I'll buy you drinks. I'm like, well, if he's going to buy me drinks or give me something. I always had to get something. So my heart's black, jaded. I have no interest, but I'll take the drinks. And then he says, so why are you here? And I'm like, I told you, I'm a stripper. That's what I told him. I do bachelor parties. Really? Oh, we need a stripper. I go, what? You look like you're like 20 years old or something. He was 22, still living with his parents. I'm like, here's my card, whatever, dude, see you later. He kept calling and calling and calling over the few months. And those few months, I really didn't know what to do. The money wasn't really there. I was, and this guy, finally I just said, okay, fine, I'll meet you for drinks. And then he said, and I have meth. I said, you have meth? Well, why didn't you say so? We would have gone out sooner. Porn stars love drug dealers. And he was really innocent looking, so I would have never guessed. So he would pick me up, we'd go to the bar, and he'd line that whole pool table up with meth, and I'd be like, dude, you're crazy. You're, like, really into meth. Yep. And then we'd go back to my apartment, and we would do meth there. And then we started doing weird stuff, like grabbing the Bible while we were high, going, dude, did you see, like, Joshua and all those conquests he made? Like, it's really awesome. And, oh, my God, look at like, King David, like, and Saul was chasing him. And we're talking about the Bible while we're high. And I'm like, what's wrong with this picture? Who are you? Why am I sitting here snorting meth, talking about the Bible and God and Jesus? And he just says, Shelley, I feel like God sent me to you to marry you and rescue you. I go, I'm not marriage material, dude, okay? You're not going to rescue me. He goes, no, God told me I'm supposed to marry you and I'm supposed to rescue you. And I'm like, then he told me, I'm a pastor's son. What? Oh my gosh. This is your great rescue? Porn star, a pastor's son who looks like he's like 20 years old. He's like a virgin. I'm like a harlot. And he just kept pushing me. No, I feel like God says I'm supposed to marry. It's going to be good. And so he brought me home to meet his Dutch family. Just think about that for a minute. Little tiny skirt, big blonde hair, and I'm like, in fact, his father says, girl, you look good. And he put his arm around me. I'm like, this is the pastor? So, of course, his mom went, what are you doing? You're thinking with your, I'm like, okay, your mom hates me. This isn't good. Okay, and then he wants to show me how big his Dutch family is. I come from a family where, we don't really get along. We're not close. This family's huge. He was brought up in a perfect childhood. Went to Christian school his whole life, from kindergarten to senior. He was vice president, and he had this beautiful family, and he had aunts and uncles. He had his grandparents there, his whole family. He had everything, perfect childhood. I'm like, He just turned me off because I had none of that. Then he brings me to his house to show me the big scrapbook that his mom kept him of every trophy he ever got, any newspaper clipping. I'm sitting there going, I hate him. He got everything I wanted as a child. I don't have any scrapbook on me. So it's almost like his family rubbed it in my face. They didn't directly do it to me, but I just felt like, no way am I marrying him. But then God told me one day, Shelley, I've sent him to you to rescue you. You're going to marry him. I'm like, and then I just thought to myself, if this idiot wants to marry some lady with herpes and a kid, where else am I going to find that guy at? Anyways, he's nice. He's not really my type at all. Like, physically, I wasn't attracted to him. I didn't love him. I didn't even love me. I didn't love my baby. There was no love at all in the sex industry. So anyways, we tried to have like a real wedding. That really didn't work out with his family, and my family was ecstatic, however. Good, marry her. We don't have to feel bad anymore. Marry her. Well, anyways, we went and go get married in Norwalk, California, and I walked up to the thing. I was like really in command. My husband's more reserved and sweet. I'm like, I'll take care of it. How much is a marriage certificate? The lady goes, that'll be $35, please. God spoke to me and said, $35 to get in the sex industry and $35 to get out. Welcome to your recovery. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to get married. So we did it. I don't even really know what happened except for some lady just said, what do you, I go, I will. And then we walked out and it was raining. I just thought, this is like the worst day of my life. This is not the wedding I ever thought I would get as a little girl. And so anyways, I married this guy and we went on this new recovery together, and I was the most horrible person to be around. I had a bad attitude, negative about everything. And then God says, you need to go to church, girl. So I went to this big church with all these fancy, pretty people like you guys. My husband had joined the military, so now we're all poor. I went from like being like a diva to like being this mom who like was forced to like make meatloaf. I didn't even eat meat. My husband goes, you can't buy shrimp, honey. We're poor. I'm like, can I call a sugar daddy? I can just call and he'll give me the money. No, you can't do that anymore. I go, So as you can see, my recovery, for many years I sat on the teaching of this pastor who he poured wisdom into me. The first time we walked in there, I got to tell you, this is crazy. It's culture shock for someone like me to go into a church. When I start a church someday, if I do, it's going to be dark first, and then it'll start to get a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. Kind of ease people, the prostitutes and the porn stars and the drug dealers, ease them in, because this is scary. They want this, but it's scary for them. And so when we walked in, all these people were in the same outfits going, all things are possible. I'm like, oh my gosh. This is so... And the pastor got up, and he's like 30 years old, and I'm like, I'm not going to listen to some joker who's 30 years old. He goes, success begins on Sunday. Then he starts walking around. I'm like looking for the exits, and he comes up to me, and he goes, did you know that there's a champion in you? I just wept. It broke. All the black can of worms were going, I just wept and wept. I was uncontrollable weeping, and the little girl in me is like, yes, I am a champion. I'm a champion. I want to talk now. I never wanted to do prostitution or porn. I never wanted to be in that. I never wanted this. I wanted to be great because that's what I was made to be. I'm a champion. Just nobody saw it. So I went every Wednesday and Sunday to that church. I just filled up with the Word. I filled up with the Word. Started renewing my mind. The Word was constantly pushing out the black lies, and it was peeling an onion. God met me. He met a prostitute. Because at first I was like, all right, so you're saying if I do these things, you'll give me what I want, right? God says, yep, test me. So I go, all right, I will prove you. And so I became persistent like the Luke 18 widow. I said, we're going to do this thing in the name of Jesus. I take every thought captive. I'm not going to think bad thoughts about myself. I'm not going to think bad thoughts about people. I'm not going to think bad thoughts about my parents. I'm going to practice love on purpose because love never fails, and you'll fail-proof my life, and you will heal me. And I want to be healed of everything, drug addiction, alcoholism. I want it all gone, every bit of it. God says, all right, that's fine. You just need to stand on the Word, because those who meditate it day and night will have prosper and success. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I'd sit out there and read my Bible out loud so he could hear. And so everybody else could hear too. The devil, everybody, I want them to hear. And you know what? I kept walking. At first, I was a little baby trying to do it. God was so sweet. I would fall, and then I would feel too guilty to go back to church. And God would say, you need to come back. Come back into the hospital. This is where the healing is. This is where the healing is. And it was a really healing. And after 7 years of just being filled up with the Word and practicing it, God totally kept his promise. I walked out of that place completely changed, a champion woman of God. I had no more mannerisms like that girl. I didn't even know her. I had changed so much. I loved my husband. We were having babies together. I loved my Dutch family, especially my mother-in-law, who taught me how to clean and cook. or who forced me to learn how to clean and cook. And then God did all these crazy miracles, like when I got pregnant in the military, the doctor says, do you have any STDs? And of course, I'm like, yeah. I had herpes and HPV, it turns out, 2 of them. And he goes, do you want to be in a study for herpes for pregnant women? I go, sure. 2 weeks later, they called me back in and said, ma'am, you do not have herpes. I said, well, that's impossible. I have had herpes. I was on medication for it. And he goes, no, ma'am, the United States Army is not wrong. You do not have herpes at all. I'm like, and then God spoke to me again. He goes, oh, I just threw that in extra for following me. Boy, I ran home to my husband. Jesus. I ran home to my husband and says, oh, guess what? I'm doing the black preacher dance. Oh my gosh, God heal me. God heal me. I go, honey, I'm herpes free. He's like, what? I go, I'm herpes free. And sure enough, we have been enjoying a lovely herpes free marriage for the last 17 years. And my story is huge. I know I'm kind of going over time, so I just want to let you know there's nothing impossible with God. He will meet you exactly where you're at. He will walk with you. He gives you the Holy Spirit to empower you. The simplest thing I did was I just read it. I could do that. Okay. I read the little scripture promise thing. Okay, if I give, it'll be given back to me. If I blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's all the conditions. Choose life, choose death. Got it. Now I get to practice it. Practice the love walk. I would be really nice. I was really full of rage and had a bad temper. So my husband could sneeze and So I used to grab the thing and throw it at him, So this time I went, that's okay, thank you. And I made a nice dinner for you. And that's how my recovery began. So I want to encourage you, practice God's word on purpose, and you will be blessed. And you will have that job and have that provision that you need. You'll have that ministry. You'll have that healing in your marriage. You'll get over that pornography addiction. You don't need that filth in your life. There's a bunch of demons anyways. You don't want that. It affects other areas of your life. God wants to bless your marriage. I don't care if you and your spouse don't even like each other. Trust me. If me and Garrett can do it, anyone can do it. If a dumb old ex-porn star, a dumb prostitute, can rise up and become a champion, how much more you, who probably have an education I didn't have, how much more you've maybe been in church, you're men. I know there's women too, but right now I'm talking to men. Men, I need you. The women I'm helping need you to rise up and say, no, I will not contribute to sex trafficking any longer. I will not view porn, but I will stand on the word of God. I will put scriptures around my computer. I will tell my wife. I will get an accountability partner, and I will get down on my knees, and I will humble myself and cry out to Jesus for help. And he's going to heal you. Thanks.